And away we go, episode 1351 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Friday, June 19th, 2026. It is Juneteenth, 2026. A happy Juneteenth to those who celebrate. And not to depress you, but this also is the 40th anniversary of the death of Len Bias, one of the biggest stories in the history of Washington, D.C. area sports. June 19th, 1986, 22-year-old Len Bias died of cardiac arrest related to a cocaine overdose. This just 2 days after being taken by the Boston Celtics with the number 2 overall pick in the 1986 NBA draft out of the University of Maryland. We could do an entire podcast series, never mind an entire podcast episode, an entire podcast series on what the death of Len Bias led to, including the ouster of Maryland head coach Lefty Driesell and the fall of Maryland men's basketball and anti-drug laws in this country. Bias was not selected to be inducted into Maryland's Athletic Hall of Fame until July 2014, but he is an all-time great Maryland player, maybe the best player in Maryland basketball history. Played for Maryland for 4 seasons, 1982-1983 through 1985-1986. He set 15 school records by the time that his 4-year playing career ended. He was a 2-time ACC Player of the Year, 1984-1985 and 1985-1986. He was the 1984 ACC Tournament MVP. He led the Terrapins to 4 consecutive NCAA tournaments. Look, Len Bias played for Maryland before my time. I have no memory of him playing for the Terps, but I have seen the highlights. I have watched the great ESPN 30 for 30 documentary on him. He was an incredible athlete, would have been an incredible NBA player, especially considering that he was joining the 1980 Celtics. I mean, think about that. The 80 Celtics with Len Bias. Rest in peace, Len Bias. Hello and welcome to this Friday installment of the Al Galdi podcast. Happy Friday. And next segment, a conversation with a good friend of this podcast, Washington Commanders analyst and former Washington Redskins tight end, Logan Paulsen, as we'll get his analysis of Washington's now concluded 2026 offseason program, his principal observations and takeaways from OTAs and the 3-day mandatory minicamp, which ended on Thursday. Logan will address the increased pace and heightened intensity for Washington during its practices this offseason, the truth about 2025 Washington Commanders training camp, what struck him while watching quarterback Jayden Daniels this offseason, what offensive coordinator David Blough's offense means for tight ends, how legit the offseason hype for tight end Ben Sinnott and receivers Jefferson and Dyami Brown is, what Washington on defense is thinking with the green dot role and Andrew Van Ginkle role, why Washington has not done more at cornerback this offseason, and more. Logan Paulsen, next segment, and also on the show, I'll talk Baltimore Orioles. The O's, they now have lost 8 of their last 12 games. A 3-0 loss at the Seattle Mariners on Thursday to lose 2 out of 3 games in the series. And I'll react to a report from The Athletic on Orioles limited partner Cal Ripken Jr. being more involved in baseball operations. This in an attempt by the team to improve players' fundamentals. Before we get to feedback, the Washington Capitals, they on Thursday morning did announce having signed head coach Spencer Carbery to a multi-year contract extension. And as I said on Thursday's show, episode 1350 of David Pagnotta, editor-in-chief of The Fourth Period, on Wednesday evening in a post on X reporting that the Caps and Carbery were in agreement on a multi-year contract extension. I am good with the Caps extending Carbery. He's done a good job over his 3 seasons as Caps head coach. Overall regular season record of 134, 83, and 29. Overall postseason record of 5-9. Led the Caps to the Stanley Cup playoffs in each of his first 2 seasons. Won the Jack Adams Award for NHL Coach of the Year for the 2024-2025 regular season. You look at the Caps not making the Stanley Cup playoffs this past season. That was disappointing, no doubt. But the Caps this past season had a weird season. 2 things that helped to keep the Caps from making the Stanley Cup playoffs this past season. A, bad special teams, bad on the power play, bad on the penalty kill. B, bad/unlucky in shootouts. The Caps in the NHL's 2025-2026 regular season went just to 2-6 in shootouts. But the Caps for the regular season had 95 points and a goal differential of +19. that goal differential should have been good enough to make the Stanley Cup playoffs. So the Caps' 5-on-5 play and the work of goaltender Logan Paulsen were very much good enough for the Caps to make the postseason. Odd season. Also, every indication does continue to be that the Washington Wizards, Trae Young, opting out of his contract to become an unrestricted free agent this offseason was done for the purpose of re-signing with the Wizards. So we late night on Wednesday night had reports that Young planned to decline his player option for the 2026-2027 season, a $48.967 million player option per hoop site. But the reporting also was that he was likely to re-sign with the Wizards. And sure enough, this was ESPN NBA insider Brian Windhorst on ESPN's Get Up with host Mike Greenberg on Thursday morning.
Trae Young has opted out of his contract. Did that come as a surprise? What's the reaction? What does it mean?
It does not. When Trae Young was traded to Washington in January, it came with the understanding that he would opt out of his contract. It also came with the understanding that he would basically not play for the rest of the season. They listed injuries, but the Wizards lost 26 of the last 27 games, with Trae Young only playing in 5 games after the trade. The expectation is, he may take a meeting or two for appearances' sake. He's going to re-sign with the Wizards, likely on a 3-year, very large contract.
Okay, so the Wizards are very much expected to re-sign Trae Young. In Monumental Basketball president Michael Winger and Wizards general manager Will Dawkins, I do trust. But I hope our team gets this right with Trae Young. Trae Young is entering his age 28 season and is a true point guard, and Winger and Dawkins may well believe that this is how to take the Wizards' young nucleus of players to a higher level. But Young has been really bad defensively and has missed a lot of games due to injury in recent seasons. It's going to be interesting to see what his next contract is. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. And in our quest for 2,000 ratings of the podcast, if you on Apple Podcasts, give the podcast a 5-star rating. I on the podcast will read whatever you write in writing a review of the podcast, but the review can include you saying something about sports. You don't just have to write about the podcast. Email from Joel Charney on whether the Washington Commanders should acquire San Francisco 49ers receiver Brandon Ayuk. Writes Joel, "Hi Al. For me, your reporting on the Brandon Ayuk saga epitomizes your tagline, 'We follow DC sports so that you don't have to.' Your monitoring of Ayuk's Instagram feed, coupled with your exhaustive interviews with 49ers insiders on Ayuk, are the ultimate taking one for the team. Thank goodness we can count on you to analyze it all thoroughly and objectively. If I'm the Commanders, I don't touch Ayuk with a 10-foot pole. Does Ayuk embody the values of a commander? Is a guy who quit on his team going to be a badass competitor? The guy hasn't played in 2 years. Who knows what he'll be like on the field at this point? As you know, I am a Steelers fan, and this reminds me of the end of the Antonio Brown saga. At his peak, Brown was an infinitely better receiver than Ayuk and still might make the Hall of Fame, but once Brown went off the emotional deep end, there was no going back. Tell me honestly, when you listen to those Ayuk Instagram posts, is this a guy who is ready emotionally to play professional football at a high level? The Commanders should sign Diggs and move on from any possibility of bringing Ayuk into the fold, regardless of his connections with AP and JD. Best wishes, Joel. Thank you very much for the email, Joel. Now, Joel did write badass competitor. Nothing wrong with that, but the phrase that pays from Washington head coach Dan Quinn is dog-ass competitor.
This is a dog-ass competitor.
Yes, thank you, Dan. Would Brandon Ayuk for Washington be a dog-ass competitor?
This is a dog-ass competitor.
Yes, Dan, we got it. What's notable is that Brandon Ayuk, at his best for the Niners, was not just terrific as a pass catcher, he also was excellent as a blocker. So he, for the Niners, was a dog-ass competitor. But the question isn't what he was. The question is what he is. And Joel, bringing up Antonio Brown is an interesting comp. Brown for the Pittsburgh Steelers was outstanding. Then the behavior got out of control and his career flamed out. And the theory is that he has a mental health issue, including possibly CTE, but who knows? You know, Brown has an X account at AB84 on which he mocks the CTE theory, saying that he runs hashtag CTE ESPN. That's actually pretty funny, I have to say. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to laugh at that, but that is pretty funny. CT ESPN. His account has 2.4 million followers, although I know that there is a belief that it's not really him running that account. Again, who knows? Now, what gets missed with Antonio Brown is that he, over his 2 seasons with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, was productive when he played. 15 games over the 2020 and 2021 regular seasons, 87 receptions for 1,028 yards and 8 touchdowns over 124 targets. He was on the Bucs 2020 Super Bowl championship team that won at the Washington football team in the wild card round in the postseason for the 2020 season. But that kind of per-game production from Brandon Ayuk for Washington would be nice. A Super Bowl title for Washington with Brandon Ayuk would be nice. But where is Brandon Ayuk at physically and mentally? Massive question. In fact, consider this. Former NFL receiver Jarvis Landry. He does a podcast with former NFL running back Leonard Fournette called 4th and South. Each guy went to LSU. This was Landry in an episode that came out on June 11th, offering help to Brandon Ayuk. Take a listen.
Man, somebody need to get that phone from him. I feel like somebody need to get that phone from him, right? I mean, and also and we could take it back as far as to your kids, right? Like there is a mental component that comes into the game. The game is not just physical, right? And I think for some people we learn it at a young age, right? 6 probably maybe a little bit too young, right? But it's good that he's seeing it. You never want to get used to losing, right? But I think when you look at in this case as a man, right? I know I had my struggles. I know you had your struggles of being cut by teams, right? Are not trying to get back, work yourself back into the league, and you knocking on the door and nobody picking up.
Absolutely.
But I know one thing, mentally, it didn't drive me to social media to be, spiraling in a way, right? You feel me? And I feel bad, bro. I feel bad because my guy got his money. Right, Brandon Ayuk, he got his money. I know he was coming off of an injury and things like that, right? And coming off of an injury, for anybody that don't know, when you get hurt in the league, especially a serious injury that puts you out, man, it fucks with your mind, your spirit. It takes a toll on you, right? And I know the San Francisco 49ers was doing everything they could to try to figure out how to get this guy back healthy, get this guy back on the field. It didn't work out, whatever it is. But where I see him at today, based on where I saw him 2 years ago, it's not the same Brandon that I know. It's not the same player. It's not the same guy, not the same man that I respected for how he played the game, how he showed up for his teammates, right? And it's just, again, man, some people say any publicity is good publicity. But I just feel like as an organization, if I'm even looking or considering bringing a guy like Brandon Ayuk in and I see the type of posts that he's been posting, I don't really know if he really want to even play football like that. I don't really know if I want to bring someone like that into my organization, into my locker. Right, exactly. Like you a veteran in the league at this point.
Definitely.
Isn't it? You a leader when you walk into a locker room, right? And I don't know who's around him. Again, we had the same type of talk a few weeks ago about the Rice kid and KC, right? Yeah. But if guys that's around him that watch our show, that watch us talk, daily about football, about life, about faith, right? I think even the mental side of things, like I think they should hear this, bro, and hopefully, bro, go call this man. Yeah. Go put your arm around him. Teammates, former teammates. Call this guy, man. And Brandon, if you're watching the show, bro, please, DM me, bro.
Reach out.
Yeah, bro.
Reach out.
Yeah, how about all of that from Jarvis Landry? Whether Brandon Ayuk has a mental health issue is anyone's guess, but given his behavior, it's not ridiculous to wonder if the guy has a mental health issue. And the fact that Jarvis Landry was offering to help Ayuk says a lot. And, this should go without saying, but I'll say it anyway. If Ayuk does have a mental health issue, all the best to him. I hope he gets the help that he needs. But no way should Washington go anywhere near him. No way should Washington acquire him with the idea of, hey, we can help him. We can fix him. It would not be Washington's job to help him or fix him. That would be the duty of Ayuk himself and his wife and the rest of his family and his friends and the NFL Players Association, it is not Washington's job to save Brandon Ayuk. Well, this Sunday, June 21st, is both the first day of summer and is Father's Day, and each is a reason to go to quince.com/Goldie. Quince makes ordering clothes so easy. Refresh your wardrobe for summer and or get your dad something that he'll really like by going to quince.com/Goldie for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. I recently got new shorts from Quince, a sand dune colored cotton chino drawstring shorts. They look and feel great, and ordering the shorts took minutes. Right away was able to figure out the right size. One of the best things about Quince is that everything is priced at 50 to 80% less than what you'd find with similar brands. How? Well, Quince works directly with ethical factories and cuts out the middlemen, so you're paying for quality, not brand markup. Everything is designed to last and make getting dressed easy. Refresh your everyday with luxury that you'll actually use. Go to quince.com/Goldie for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns, now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/Goldie. Free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/Goldie. Look, choosing life insurance is tricky. Heck, life insurance as a topic can be uncomfortable, but Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. You'll get your lowest rate from Ethos' network of trusted carriers. And know this, Ethos has a rating of 4.8 out of 5 stars on Trustpilot with over 4,000 reviews. Take 10 minutes today to get covered with life insurance through Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/Al Galdi. That's ethos.com/Al Galdi. Ethos.com/Al Galdi. Application times may vary. Rates may vary.
Quick question for parents. When was your child's last eye exam? Myopia, or nearsightedness, is becoming more common in kids, and it's not just about needing stronger glasses. If myopia continues to progress untreated, it may increase the risk of more serious vision complications later in life. The good news? An eye doctor can help identify myopia early and recommend options designed to help manage it over time. One of those options is Essilor Stellest lenses. Stellest lenses are designed specifically for children and are part of an approach to myopia management that corrects their vision while supporting eye health as their eyes continue to grow. They look like regular eyeglasses, but they're purpose-built for young wearers. Every child's vision is different, which is why starting with a professional eye exam matters. If you have concerns or even just questions, your eye doctor can guide you through what solution is best for your child. Clear vision today can help support your child's future, and it all starts with an eye exam. Visit Essilor.com to learn more about Stellest lenses and to find an Essilor expert eye care professional near you. That's ESSILOR.com.
The Washington Commanders' 2026 offseason program is over. It ended on Thursday on what was day 3 of the team's 3-day mandatory minicamp. The team now has a month-plus long break until training camp. The offseason program lasted from April 20th through June 18th, so 2 months. Head coach Dan Quinn did a post-practice press conference on Thursday afternoon. The presser started around 12:30, lasted for about 21 and a half minutes. During the presser, had this back and forth between John Duran of WUSA 9 and Quinn.
Dan, just the entirety of the offseason back January, February, when you're getting the coach staff together through this week, how do you feel about it? Did you accomplish everything you wanted to?
Yeah, I thought we really set out with big sights on what we could accomplish together. And it wasn't always easy, but to see the first part between, like you said, the end of the season and let's call it April 20th, how much could the staff grow? How much could they collaborate, putting in new systems, teaching it together, giving new insights, working across? We did examples of, a coaching summit where we had other people talk to us. We've had, different backgrounds, different teaching, testing people under pressure, and to see that manifest itself through the teaching and the competitiveness at practice, like that made me feel good. I thought they really applied it together. I feel their connection as a group. And that's really important to me, to see that type of collaboration. So I knew if they did a really good job, then the players, it would get in through to them. And so we pushed them pretty hard to get into that space. There's plenty of work to do, but I'm very excited for them, coming into a training camp. What's that going to look like together? And I think they're off to a hell of a start with that.
What message, if any, do you leave with the guys before the long break?
I told them today, and we had a fun meeting this morning where we did some competitions. We saw some things from practice yesterday. It was nice to have the NFL officials here. So we even had one that we had such a great clip down the sideline. So we brought the referee up in front of the team, catch or no catch, for a touchdown under review. And so those types of things were fine. I told the team I loved the gains that they've made this offseason. And so I spoke a little bit about what I would call like the drift, like the next 35 days. And we all could be vulnerable to that. You're not here with your guys, doing everything together, setting the schedule for it. But they've got some real principles, to lean back on, their teammates, the way we want to compete, the standards that we have. So I said, by adhering to those principles here, like that protects you from the drift. But even our families are here at practice today, and so like they're all in on it too, to make sure like everybody's coming back in crazy shape to go do that and protect from the drift, which could easily happen to any of us in 35 days. But how do we narrow it back in to make sure they need the break, the space, but also like the training to get themselves ready to really apply what they could do? It's going to be a hell of a camp. I'm certain of that. Just the want to, the attitude of what it is. So it's been very good. But I got to give a shout out to like Chad and his staff. Like they really pushed the pace with the players during this phase, which then pushes it again, into the summer and into training camp.
And Chad is Chad Engelhardt, who is Washington's head strength and conditioning coach, one of the top people on the team's player health and performance staff. And Washington on Thursday afternoon announced various changes to the player health and performance staff, personnel staff, and football support staff. Here's the biggest takeaway, and this was noted by Commanders insider Nikki Zavala of The Athletic on Thursday afternoon in a post on X. Washington in 2022, the team's last season of being owned by Dan Snyder, had just 15 people in personnel and scouting and just 5 full-time staffers on the athletic training/medical staff. Washington now has 26 people in personnel and scouting and 15 people in what is called player health and performance. A big difference. I am very pleased to welcome back to the Al Galdi podcast Washington Commanders analyst and former Washington Redskins tight end Logan Paulsen. Logan was signed by the Skins as an undrafted free agent at UCLA in April 2010. He was with the Skins for the 2010 through 2015 seasons, then played for the Chicago Bears in the 2016 season, the San Francisco 49ers in the 2017 season, and the Atlanta Falcons in the 2018 season, during which the Falcons head coach was current Commanders head coach Dan Quinn. Logan now does a lot of great work for the Commanders on their website and on their YouTube channel. He also is the co-host of the Take Command podcast. You can follow Logan on X at Logan Paulsen NFL. Hey, Logan, how are you?
I'm good, man. Good. Looking forward to a little bit of a break here for myself, get some vacation, so that's going to be nice. But excited to talk some Commanders football.
Yeah, nice to talk to you. It has been said that Washington, during its practices this offseason, practiced with an increased pace and heightened intensity. Some more juice at these practices. Did you notice those things?
Yeah, I mean, I think people are kind of conflating what happened in training camp last year. Training camp last year felt a little bit more sluggish, I think in large part because of the injuries and because of the people that weren't there for the majority of the training camp. This actually, I felt like aligned pretty closely to what it was last year. I do think that they kind of approached it in a slightly different way. There was kind of, this kind of walkthrough group and like a full tempo group during minicamp, OTAs, everyone was kind of intermingled together. But I do think that for whatever, like maybe it's just my perception, it felt faster, felt a little bit more urgent. And I kind of accredited that to like just having better people around, right? You get obviously, Sonny Styles out there. You see Nick Cross out there, the way they run. You see Chikakonkwo, the way he moves. Terry's back out there. There just was an uptick in speed and velocity for multiple positions. And that's kind of what I equated it to. I didn't necessarily think it was any different, drastically different in OTAs or minicamp, but I think there's kind of a pep in the step, some energy in the air maybe. And I think people are really excited about, what David Blough and Durante Jones are bringing to this group.
Dan Quinn, during his pre-OTA practice press conference on June 9th, said of 2026 Washington Commanders training camp, quote, "I do fully expect this to be our most competitive camp that we've had going into year 3, end quote. And he has since echoed that. What do you think that he means when he says that this year's training camp will be the most competitive of his tenure as the team's head coach?
I just think when you look around the roster, you're like, man, there's a lot of good football players on here that are going to have to work hard to find themselves roles. Like, I think even if you just look at like the tight end room, for example, you got John Bates, you got Chika Okonkwo, Colson Yankov's had a really nice OTA minicamp phase. Ben Sinnott looks like he's kind of finding his sea legs a little bit. Lawrence Cager has made some really nice splash plays over the last couple of weeks. So they're going to have to put a really good football player on practice squad probably. And I think that's probably what he's referring to. I think it's the same thing with the defensive line, specifically like those ends in the 3-4 and the defensive tackles. Like, you're kind of like, man, there's a lot of guys here that can play. And I know there's that Kinlaw clip that everyone's familiar with now where he's like listing off like 5 or 6 people, 7 people. And you're like, wow, there are a lot of talented people on this roster and they all can't play football here. So I think that's what Dan's referring to.
Yeah. A lot of naughty words in that clip.
That is a lot of naughty words. Exactly right. We're not going to, not for this show, but for Kinlaw can say it.
You use the word sluggish in referring to Washington's 2025 training camp. As you know, something that has come up is that the team's training camp last year was low energy or even soft. Now, saying those things also could be like retroactive judgment in an attempt to explain why the team's 2025 season went so poorly. So what is the truth about Washington's 2025 training camp?
So, it's a really good question. And I think like one of the things is because I've been a part of training camps that are really sluggish and the team's really good. And I've been a part of training camps where it's very rigorous and physical and energetic and the team's been poor also. So it just kind of depends. And so when I look back at that time, I think people forget all of the adversity that was going on, specifically with the offense. Like, obviously, Terry's in the midst of a contract negotiation. Noah Brown's hurt. And so your number one receiver is Deebo Samuel, who's not really like a true one. You've got Jalen Lane, a rookie, who's kind of getting that 2 reps. Luke McCaffrey's trying to find his way in the offense. You're kind of giving rest days and vet days to Zach Ertz. And you've got a rookie right tackle coming in. And all of a sudden, the defense feels like it's this overwhelming behemoth in terms of what it's able to do. And I just think it gave kind of this really lethargic kind of feel to the offense. They couldn't get anything going, and the defense felt like they were on cloud 9. And then obviously you get out of that, and having been a part of teams where one side of the ball dominates, it gives you a really poor indication of like where the roster's at. And the reason that this one was so significant, I would argue, is because like not only was it like the defense looked exceptionally good, but the offense didn't have any of the key playmakers. So it just kind of felt like the offense couldn't get anything done. The tempo of practice, energy of practice was a little bit lower. I think it gave this kind of false sense of security to the defense. And I think all those things kind of come together to make this. I don't think anybody's kind of like, trying to explain away what happened last year, but I think it kind of informs some of the evaluation and why at week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4 of last year's season, the team looks like it did.
I know that you, during Washington's offseason program, got a nice reminder about the QB1, Jayden Daniels. Share that if you don't mind.
Yeah, I remember it was like the first day OTAs, and he gets out there, and the quarterbacks are all thrown into the net, and you're just like, you've been around like Matt Ryan, Deshaun Watson when he was good before kind of all the adversity stuff. Some really talented players. Kirk Cousins, obviously, as he was a developing player, and the ball just comes out of his hand. Jayden Daniels in a specific way, and his ability to kind of be on the move and throw off platform and get the ball velocity there and the accuracy that he's playing with, coupled with the anticipation. I was just like, man, like dude's really good at football. And it just because you see 2000, and I think he's good in a different way because everyone's been talking about Cliff versus David Blough, and David Blough was asking him to do some different stuff. And you're always like, can you handle some of the newness? And I felt watching OTAs and minicamp like it's going to be pretty seamless for him, just in terms of like, obviously there's a mental load, but like in terms of the physical ask, I think he's just going to do fine because of the type of athlete that he is.
You mentioned the competition at tight end for Washington. An anticipated feature of offensive coordinator David Blough's offense is that it is a tight end friendly offense. Is that the case?
I think it's probably a little bit more conventional, like when you compare it to Cliff as an example. Like Cliff is like, hey, man, you're going to line up kind of in the slot. You're going to line up in as the number 3 receiver. And the expectation from me in this offense is that you win kind of using route running nuance and savvy. And when you look at kind of Kyle's offense, Sean McVay's offense, the tight end, there is a little bit of that, but there's also the benefit of the scheme, right? Like we're going to have a heavy run action kind of right behind the tight end. He can bluff the linebacker and get into the seam, right? Or we can run this kind of high cross and I can just run as fast as I can because on the backside, we got two posts kind of clearing it out. So I can just run to grass. And again, it's a pretty big departure from the nuance kind of technicality of Cliff's offense. So to me, I think it's slightly more conventional. And I think there's a precedent. Like when you look at Detroit, when you look at Minnesota, just how they use the tight end there. And there's a lot of crossover between those offenses. And again, I think about Arizona when Blough was there with Trey McBride and how they were able to kind of speak to that skill set. I think it's not only is it the offense, but it's also identifying what certain guys do well and also speaking to that. So it's a little bit scheme in terms of insulating kind of the athletes at the position and also kind of identifying what guys do well.
The game of which players stood out during OTAs and mandatory minicamp, a dangerous game to play because what we see in these practices can be misleading. But multiple people who cover Washington have written that tight end Ben Sinnott looked good during practices this offseason. What do you see?
Yeah, so I'm glad you said that they can be misleading. I'm not saying that this is misleading, but there's always context, right? So Ben, I'm going to speak to this from my perspective. So there was a period of time in training camp when I was a player, and I'd play with the 2s and the 3s, and I was like a 6 or 7 year vet at the time, and so I'd go out with the 3s, and I'd got 6 years of NFL experience on my belt, and I would absolutely dice the 3s. Like I would just catch balls, do things that I wouldn't normally do in a game because like I'm better, right? And so I think like when you look at Ben, I think Ben is an elite athlete and he's kind of running with the 2s and the 3s, which is totally reasonable because Chig and John Bates are going to run with the 1s, right? And so when he's out there, like my expectation is that he does look good, right? And I think he's just kind of meeting that expectation. Like he's, working the seam. Like today, for example, there was the last day of minicamp, there was this great ball that Sam Hartman rips to him and he's kind of working across the middle in like a Y high cross type concept, just cross in the middle of the field. And it was just perfect, and he's right where he's supposed to be. There was not a lot of technicality there. The concept kind of got him open and he made the catch. And there was a couple plays like that throughout the OTAs and minicamp. So to answer your question, yes, Ben looked good, but he also looked good in the context of playing against the 2s and the 3s. And so does that translate in the preseason and the joint practice to when we're going against the varsity football team?
You brought up tight end Lawrence Cager. Dan Quinn has brought up Lawrence Cager. What is it about him that's appealing?
I mean, there's certain guys that just walk around the building, and he's like probably an easy 6'5", maybe 6'6". He's like 250 pounds. He's a converted wide receiver. So when you watch him on the grass, he runs kind of like a wideout. And so when you get a big body like that can move, my offensive mind immediately goes to like, he's a matchup issue. And so when you see him make a catch, when you see him run the seam and he kind of high points the football, you're like, there's something on the bone there. Now, does it ever work out for him? Does he get to play varsity minutes? How is he on special teams? All those things kind of factor in. But in terms of athlete and movement skills, like that's like he's a pretty impressive kind of guy.
Much more with Logan Paulsen in moments, but if you have a case, contact Chris Nace. Contact the Nace Law Group, accident and injury lawyers. If you feel that you've been wronged, if you think that you've been wronged but aren't sure, contact the Nace Law Group, accident and injury lawyers, and mention that Al Galdi sent you. You can call 202-902-7611. You could also visit Washington, D.C., injurylawyers.com and submit for a free, no-obligation case review. The Nace Law Group features compassionate lawyers and zealous advocates for its clients, led by the great Chris Nace and founded in 1979. The Nace Law Group is a Washington, D.C.-based family law firm that handles medical malpractice, personal injury, birth injury, legal malpractice, and consumer protection cases, offering aggressive advocacy for victims in Washington, D.C. and West Virginia. The Nace Law Group is outstanding. It will fight for you and your family. The Nace Law Group has recovered millions of dollars for the sick and injured. If you have a case, contact the Nace Law Group. Call 202-902-7611 or visit Washington, D.C. injurylawyers.com and tell the Nace Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. The Nace Law Group, accident and injury lawyers. We're talking with Washington Commanders analyst and former Washington Redskins tight end Logan Paulsen. Dan Quinn, during his pre-practice press conference on Tuesday afternoon, was asked which receivers, aside from Terry McLaurin, have especially stood out to Quinn during the offseason program. And Quinn immediately mentioned Van Jefferson and Dyami Brown. And Quinn highlighted those guys at the end of the answer as well. What'd you make of Quinn talking about Jefferson and Brown like that?
I mean, they've all made plays, I think about the OTA period, and Dyami looks like amazing, right? But yeah, I think it kind of goes back to the same conversation we're having with Sinnott in the tight end room about kind of speaking to skill sets, right? We're going to have Dyami do what Dyami's good at, which is like run fast, kind of in a straight line. You're going to get open because you're fast and you're big and you can make these catches down the field. And I think that's what we've seen from Dyami. And I think the thing about Van Jefferson is, again, like when he's working with the 2s and the 3s, like he's a guy who's played a lot of football. He's started a lot of games, and he is a very technically sound, proficient athlete and route runner. So there is a moxie and a consistency that he brings to the position, which to me makes sense that he's going to look good during the OTA phase.
Two questions that we've had with Washington's defense under new defensive coordinator Durante Jones. A, who will be the green dot guy? B, who will be the Van Ginkle? Will linebacker Sonny Styles be the Mike linebacker and green dot guy? And I know that edge defender Kayvon Chason during offseason practices was among those in the Andrew Van Ginkle role. Andrew Van Ginkle being a versatile edge defender for the Minnesota Vikings, the team for which Jones spent 5 of the previous 6 seasons. Where are you with those two items, green dot guy and Van Ginkle guy?
Yeah, so I think what they're doing with the Mike stuff and the green dot, they're kind of got a pretty consistent rotation of people through there. So what I mean by that, it's like sometimes it's Frankie, sometimes it's Kane, or sometimes it's Jordan McGee, excuse me, sometimes it's Leo Chanel, sometimes it's Sonny. And so I'm not saying that they haven't, that there's not, to me, there's not a definitive guy who's going to be Mike. I think it's going to be, obviously, if I was putting money on it, I think it's going to be Sonny at some point, because you don't draft a guy 7 overall to have him sit on the bench. I think Frankie's a beast. I think Leo Chanel's a beast. I think those guys are going to play. They're going to be in packages on the field together, but that hasn't come to life just yet, right? That hasn't been a thing for this. They're still, to me, they're still kind of feeling that. And you've been to some of these practices, Al, like it's not, it's kind of like, we're going to have the first linebackers work with the 2 defensive line. There's not like a clear, like who's the first guy in line there. And so again, then you mentioned the Kayvon Chason. I do think there is some stuff where you're like, man, there is some crossover in terms of how he drops and how he moves, but there's a bunch of guys on the roster that can do that as well. So I think, again, this is a part of the offseason that makes me think a certain way, kind of like you. Oh, that kind of feels like that, that Sam linebacker role that Van Ginkle was in Minnesota, right? But there's other guys that are doing that role. So who's going to actually do that full time? We'll probably find out more about that in training camp.
Why has Washington done so little at cornerback this offseason?
I think when you look at Minnesota as the point of most recent comparison, they don't value corner at a super high level, right? Because of what they do in the front. So, and I'm assuming just based on what we've seen in Minnesota that some of that will carry over to here. What I mean by that is basically saying, like, if we can create pressure, if we can bring all out, if we can present different looks, if we can create kind of different rough rush patterns and packages with different personnel, we're going to affect the quarterback. And so if we can do that at a high level and we're getting to the quarterback in 1.7, 2.3 seconds consistently, like the corners never have to back up. They just stand there and play the football. They don't have to defend a full route tree. And so I think when you talk to guys who've been in, like Fred Smoot, for example, has been in some aggressive defenses, he's like, yeah, man, like when you're in a team, when you're with a team that blitzes like Brian Flores' team does with that kind of efficiency and that detail, like I just stand there and the ball has to come out. I know the ball has to come out. And so I think that's one of the reasons why potentially you haven't seen that huge investment in quarter. But also I think like you see Mikey, like I think his skill set fits what this Durante Jones defense is. Same thing with Amik Robinson, aggressive, competitive, tough dudes who have really good ball skills and I think can be very productive in a defense like this.
Dan Quinn this offseason has preached so heavily about the importance of communication on defense. Have you seen improved communication with the defense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was a play recently, like, and it's not the secondary, but I was watching Sonny Styles and like, David Blough's got the formation set, then they motion, then they switch the back, and then Sonny the whole time is talking, motioning, like pushing guys out, talking to the secondary. And I think one of the issues, like I love Cliff, and I think he brought a lot of really interesting and exciting things from an offensive standpoint to the NFL. But, if I'm a defense practicing against that every single day, it's very simple, right? It's like, we're going to be in 2x2, we're going to be in 3x1, we're going to find these explosive opportunities in very specific college-esque type ways. And it doesn't really challenge the defense. But I will say, like, when you look at David Blough's offense, what we've seen through minicamp and OTAs, it's much more diverse, much more complex, much more nuanced. And I think that level of complexity and nuance is only going to help the defense kind of work through communication. Like, hey, this is a bunch. Like, what's our call here, right? They're shifting to a bunch. What's our call now, right? Versus this coverage, versus this, versus that. And I think people underestimate how valuable those reps are in practice and how valuable the complexity of David Blough's system is to improving the communication of the secondary and the linebackers in this Durante Jones defense.
That's really interesting. Durante Jones, in spending the last 3 seasons as the Vikings defensive passing game coordinator / defensive backs coach, worked under Vikings defensive coordinator Brian Flores. The Vikings, for the 2025 regular season per Sport Radar, were number 1 in the NFL in blitz percentage, 44.3. Number 2 was the Atlanta Falcons at 33.4. So the Vikings were 10.9 percentage points higher than the next highest team in blitz percentage. Do you want Washington blitzing at an extremely high rate this coming regular season?
Hell yeah. I mean, hell yeah, absolutely. I think, like, when you look at Minnesota, I remember, because I kind of do like a pseudo game plan, like ways to attack, like when I'm watching Minnesota. And I remember coming out of that film room, like, you know, watching 2 or 3 games and being like, I don't know if I have a good solution because of how aggressive and how unconventional they are on first and second down specifically, right? So all of the runs you would normally run, they're not as good. All of the passes, drop back you would run, not as good. All of the play pass stuff, they kind of, the way they bring their pressures kind of messes with your rules a little bit. You really got to coach it up. I heard someone tell me this recently. It's kind of like when Georgia Tech or Navy in college is running the triple option and you kind of come into that moment and you don't have any tools to develop to defend the triple option. This is the triple option of NFL defenses, right? But a big tenet of that is the pressure you're able to bring. So I want to see them be aggressive because I do think it flummoxes and confuses and really challenges offenses and offensive coordinators to come up with a unique plan to solve the issues that they're presenting that are unique to the Minnesota defense.
Washington Commanders analyst and former Washington Redskins tight end Logan Paulsen. Logan, thank you. Have a nice weekend.
Thanks for having me on, man. Really appreciate it.
All right, something else that I wanted to get to with the Washington Commanders. So something that I've respected about Dan Quinn is that he, not once, publicly anyway, has used injuries as an excuse for the team going just 5-12 last regular season, even though injuries, to me, were the team's biggest problem by far. But Quinn, to his credit, has taken ownership of how bad last season was, and that was on display in this conversation with Evan Washburn of CBS Sports in an interview that came out on YouTube on Wednesday evening. Here was a portion of that conversation.
I am curious, as part of our discussion on process, the process of viewing last year's results.
Yep.
On the outside, we can say they had a lot of injuries.
Yep.
From the metrics I saw, from week 1 starters, you lost the most games out of those guys, second most in the league.
Yep.
And there's other areas that come off on paper, but your process is so much deeper than that.
Yeah.
So as we sit here now, even though you're pushing towards 2026, fully
Yep.
understand that, what does best describe the process of examining that so that you can avoid it this season?
I think I can give you 2 examples of that, of some specific things to say, in 25, was it as elevated, as desperate, as hungry? And I pulled out some tape from a random 2024 OTA practice and one from a 25 OTA practice, and I showed some of the players this offseason to say, this was a team desperate, and this one wasn't as desperate. And so, what a great example. Sometimes you might just be 1 degree off, and then in July you're this far, August a little further, and by October, what the hell?
Wow.
You know, and it was such a hard lesson to go through and to learn, but it's also one that, like, I wanted to take the lessons from 25, learn them, and then burn, you know, all the others. Like, in fact, before the new coaches came in here for 26, I took everybody else outside. We wrote some things down on a piece of paper, a couple big, like paint stirrers, wrote down some stuff, lit a big fire in one of those big cans, like, said, all right, what are the things we're leaving behind? You know, there's got to be the lessons that we're taking from this past season. because it wasn't all injury related. We weren't as connected. We weren't as tough. We weren't as clutch. And so some of that's practice, some of that's connection, some of that's, the scheme, the coaching, all of it. You can put everything into one big, pot.
And you guys literally did that. You put things that you wanted to burn from the 25 experience.
And it wasn't fair for any of these new coaches coming in, for them to have any other baggage that we're bringing into this season. There was no chance for that. And so I like developing the coaches. So let's talk about what we didn't like, how we're going to fix it. But we're not bringing this old from 25 into this season with these new coaches that are being a part of this. So the day before they arrived, I did that exercise with the coaches that were with us the season prior. And I also showed that video that I spoke to you about. I didn't show this year's players. They had nothing to do with them. Sure. But I wanted the other players to see, let's make sure the practice here, the competitive nature, that's our standard. That's the most important thing. And so I was going to get that across come hell or high water going into this offseason. So when I talked about competition as the central theme, that's where that comes from.
Yeah, really good stuff there from Dan Quinn on how he and his coaching staff have approached what happened last season and how he and his coaching staff have moved on from what happened last season. Ultimately, none of this matters if the team isn't better this coming season. But I do applaud Quinn for what we just heard there. And Quinn, during his post-practice press conference on Thursday afternoon, got asked about the conversation with Evan Washburn. We, during the presser, had this exchange between Commanders insider Ben Standig of Last Man Standing on Substack and Quinn.
Hey, Dan, I saw an interview you gave, I think with CBS the other day about the last year to some degree, and you said you guys weren't as connected, you weren't as tough, as clutch as you needed to be. It wasn't just about the injuries. At what point did you kind of come up with that realization, and how did you specifically this offseason work to avoid that happening again?
Yeah, I think when you have a tough year, you want to do a lot of reflection and starting with yourself first to make sure what parts weren't to a standard that we liked. And like most things, there's many reasons that you want to go into that, but you also want to say, okay, if that's what we identified, what do you want to go work on to make sure you're putting the team back into the right space to do that? And I've been proud of the group of the players and the coaches, their connection of what's taking place. But I did feel that. And, you don't like that when that happens, but I also wanted to acknowledge it. And so the players were aware of that too. I showed them, some of those examples, and that's been a big push for me, going into this offseason. So I've been very intentional about that.
It's funny that we just spoke with Logan Paulsen. Dan Quinn, off being fired by the Falcons as head coach in October 2020, contacted a bunch of people to see what he as Falcons head coach could have done better. He did not just assume that he was right and the Falcons were wrong. No, Quinn wanted to learn from what he did wrong. Quinn is a very introspective, reflective, self-aware person, and I respect that. Those are really good qualities.
Quick question for parents. When was your child's last eye exam? Myopia, or nearsightedness, is becoming more common in kids, and it's not just about needing stronger glasses. If myopia continues to progress untreated, it may increase the risk of more serious vision complications later in life. The good news? An eye doctor can help identify myopia early and recommend options designed to help manage it over time. One of those options is Essilor Stellest lenses. Stellest lenses are designed specifically for children and are part of an approach to myopia management that corrects their vision while supporting eye health as their eyes continue to grow. They look like regular eyeglasses, but they're purpose-built for young wearers. Every child's vision is different, which is why starting with a professional eye exam matters. If you have concerns or even just questions, your eye doctor can guide you through what solution is best for your child. Clear vision today can help support your child's future, and it all starts with an eye exam. Visit Essilor.com to learn more about Stellest lenses and to find an Essilor expert eye care professional near you. That's ESSILOR.com.
Look, choosing life insurance is tricky. Heck, life insurance as a topic can be uncomfortable, but Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. You'll get your lowest rate from Ethos' network of trusted carriers. And know this, Ethos has a rating of 4.8 out of 5 stars on Trustpilot with over 4,000 reviews. Take 10 minutes today to get covered with life insurance through Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/Al Galdi. That's ethos.com/Al Galdi. Ethos.com/Al Galdi. Application times may vary. Rates may vary.
If your business runs on 5 different apps, 12 browser tabs, and one spreadsheet that everyone's afraid to touch, it's probably time for Odoo. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that connects every part of your business into one powerful, easy-to-use platform. So instead of wasting time switching between disconnected systems, your entire business works together in real time. Your team moves faster, your data stays accurate, and you can actually focus on growing your business. Let one unified system run your entire business. From the first opportunity to the final payment, everything works together in one place. Whether you're a small business or managing a large operation, Odoo gives you one flexible platform built to grow with you. Learn more at odoo.com. That's ODOO.com.
Well, make it 8 losses in 12 games for the Baltimore Orioles, a 3-0 loss at the Seattle Mariners on Thursday to lose 2 out of 3 games in the series. The O's in MLB's 2026 regular season now are 35-41 with a run differential of minus 36, 22-19 at home versus 13-22 on the road. Man, the O's have been so bad on the road. More on the loss shortly, but if you are an O's fan, you need to be aware of a report by MLB insiders Ken Rosenthal and Brittany Giroli of The Athletic. The piece came out on Thursday morning. Headline, quote, Cal Ripken Jr. takes more active player development role as Orioles emphasize fundamentals, end quote. Reads the piece, quote, a long time ago, in a baseball galaxy far, far away, the Orioles followed a guiding set of principles known as the Oriole Way. Originating in the 1950s by legendary executive Paul Richards, catcher Elrod Hendricks once described the Oriole Way as never beat yourself. Ripken, meticulous in his efforts to master every nuance of the game, came to embody the philosophy during his Hall of Fame career. Now, as a part owner of the Orioles, he's contributing to an effort to revive the organization's emphasis on fundamentals. Ripken, 65, is taking a more active role in player development, according to people briefed on his involvement but granted anonymity to discuss it. This is the first time Ripken, who retired as a player in 2001, has taken such a hands-on approach within the organization. Ripken's involvement follows the hiring last November of former big league manager Mike Shildt, who became the organization's coordinator of instruction in the minor leagues, a newly created position emphasizing fundamentals. Orioles president of baseball operations Mike Elias sought out the expertise of both Shildt and Ripken on player development, and over time has leaned more heavily on Ripken's baseball acumen, according to people briefed on the situation, end quote. If you are an O's fan, this news is very good news. One of the Orioles' biggest problems over the last 2 seasons, 2 disappointing seasons, has been a lack of fundamentals. And you know me, I'm big on analytics. The O's with Mike Elias as president of baseball operations and general manager are all in on analytics, but the fundamentals in the organization have slipped. Good for Elias for admitting that. And of course, it is good to have the greatest player in franchise history, former shortstop and third baseman Cal Ripken Jr., a member of the National Baseball Hall of Fame, more involved in baseball operations. More from the piece, quote, the shift toward emphasizing small details isn't just in the minor leagues. First-year manager Craig Albernaz, another agent of change, recently invited public scrutiny when he declined to start star rookie Samuel Basallo from June 8th through the 10th. Albernaz, according to people briefed on his reasoning, was trying to send Basayo, 21, a message about playing through minor ailments and what it takes to succeed as a major league catcher. Albernaz, Elias, and Ripken all declined comment for this story. Albernaz, who previously worked for Tampa Bay and Cleveland, two lower revenue organizations that generally get the most out of their talent, seemingly viewed the Basayo matter as an important step toward instilling a new culture, one that will include crisper play, end quote. So how about that? Some more light shed on the controversy between O's manager Craig Albernaz and catcher Samuel Basayo. We on the podcast had been talking about the controversy, and more from the piece. Quote, Elias, upon taking over in November 2018, aggressively modernized the Orioles in a way they sorely needed by embracing new technology and analytics. The perception, both inside and outside the organization, is that offense moved to the forefront of their position player development, in part because of increasingly available swing data. Fundamentals were not ignored, but they weren't emphasized either, end quote. So good news via that report from The Athletic. I was very happy to read that report. But yeah, the O's did lose again. This 3-0 loss at the Mariners on Thursday. The Orioles' first shutout loss in this regular season. No runs, just 3 hits, which were a double and 2 singles. 0 for 5 with runners in scoring position. 11 strikeouts. The O's did draw 3 walks, but the O's got worked by Mariners starting pitcher Brian Wu. He tossed 7 scoreless innings with 9 strikeouts versus 1 walk. The top 5 batters in the Orioles lineup, Taylor Ward, Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutschman, Pete Alonso, and Samuel Basayo went a combined 0 for 18 with 2 walks. Not good. The biggest bright spot for the O's was starting pitcher Shane Baz. He allowed 3 runs in 7 innings with 9 strikeouts. He was good. He gave up just 5 hits, which were a double and 4 singles. He issued 2 walks, 99 pitches, 62 strikes, 37 balls. So Shane Baz, off a bad start to this regular season, has been a lot better lately. His overall stats, 15 games, all starts, ERA of 4.04, whip of 1.36. And the O's in this game used just one relief pitcher, who was Rico Garcia. He tossed a perfect bottom of the 8th. Now, next up for the O's is a 3-game series at the Los Angeles Dodgers, who have won each of the last 2 World Series and who for this regular season have the best record in MLB, 48-27, and have the best run differential in MLB, plus 144. The O's have listed the following starting pitchers as probables for the series. Game 1 Friday night at 10:10, Trey Gibson. Game 2 Saturday night at 10:10, Trevor Rogers. Game 3 Sunday afternoon at 4:10, Brandon Young. And that'll do it for you and me for now, but there's more to come. Monday show, episode 1352. We'll have a lot for you on the Washington Commanders. Also on Monday's show, I'll talk Washington Nationals and Baltimore Orioles. The Nats this weekend have a 3-game series at the Tampa Bay Rays. The O's this weekend have a 3-game series at the Los Angeles Dodgers. Have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you on Monday.
Wrote down some stuff, lit a big fire in one of those big cans, said, all right, what are the things we're leaving behind? You know, there's got to be the lessons that we're taking from this past season, because it wasn't all injury related. We weren't as connected. We weren't as tough. We weren't as clutch. And so some of that's practice, some of that's connection, some of that's, the scheme, the coaching, all of it. You can put everything into one big, pot.
And you guys literally did that. You
yes.
put things that you wanted to burn from the 25 experience.
And it wasn't fair for any of these new coaches coming in, for them to have any other baggage that we're bringing into this season. There was no chance for that.